It's 11,
May as well start.
so yeah.
Yeah. Well, first we'll start off with introductions. My name is Jeff Balke. I'm a colorist. I work mainly with Zenescope. I also work with John Carpenter, the guy who created Halloween, The Fogs, like the John Carpenter director guy. Starting off also, I'm going to be doing my own thing coming up next month. We're going to be debuting a couple of things where I am doing some coloring, but I'm doing more of like the editorial stuff, but we won't talk about that because that's a whole different panel. But the coloring stuff I've been doing for 4 years, full time. I got fired from my retail job, yes, which actually was a blessing in disguise. It was awesome, it was great. But because I started doing the coloring roughly about the same time, where I was doing it full time. I wanted to do it full time, and so here I am now, doing shows all over the country, about 30 shows a year. You know, so I'm definitely keeping busy, and yeah. I'll go into a little bit later on, like how I broke in and stuff like that. So, but I want to introduce Heather.
Hey, well, I'm Heather Breckel. I mostly work for IDW. I've worked on Ninja Turtles, both the main series and the new one based on the Nick show. I also most famously work on My Little Pony. I've done all the issues so far, aside from like the micros and stuff. Like I've done like a few of the micros. I've also worked on number 13 for Dark Horse, Peter Panzerfaust for Image, and also I'm on a new series called Never Ending, which is about to start for Dark Horse. And other than that, I do my own comics like for free time, and because I get really bored when I'm not working on something, so I just draw my own like web comics and stuff, and you can always easily find them online because there's like no one else in the U.S. named Heather Breckel. And yeah, like you, I had like a retail job. I worked for Starbucks for 9 years, and I actually just quit it like
The white man's crack.
yeah, I quit it in August to pursue comics full time. It's like I could have done it like a year or two ago. I mean, I've been working as a colorist for about 3 years now, so at least. But I kind of wanted to stay just because there's that job security, and I got health insurance through Starbucks. But then I realized insurance isn't really that expensive on your own when you're alone and healthy and not 50 or anything. So
Right.
it's like my aunt is like 60 something, and she was like, my insurance is $400 a month, and I'm like, but she makes a lot more than me.
Yeah. So for you guys out there, how many people are interested in actually getting into comics, or actually interested in being a colorist for comics? Either or.
It's okay. It's like, I mean, I figure most people don't specifically set out to be a colorist. It's not the most glamorous job. It's like, usually people are like, I want to be the penciler, I want to be the writer. And no one ever really is like, when I grow up, I want to be a colorist. It's like, I wanted to be an animator for years, and then I wanted to do comics. So.
Well, I know when I got in, I came in through a little website called MySpace. You guys probably heard of it. Way before Facebook became what it is today. And I put up a couple of my own black and whites, my own drawings up on MySpace. See, it slipped out Facebook. But up on MySpace. And I got some pretty okay comments, and I got some not so okay comments. But most of the okay ones were everyone wanted to see more colored stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, let me see what I can do. I didn't want to color, couldn't stay in the lines, to be honest with you. I didn't know how to use the computer. I actually found out about a year later, I'm like, wow, you can use a computer to color? Oh, the sky's the limit! Yeah, well.
Did you use MS Paint at first?
I actually use Crayola. I use marker, I use Sharpie, whatever I can find at the store, at Target or Walmart, I just colored away. And I'm like, all right, I did a cool Spider-Man piece, one that I drew. Posted that, and my MySpace, it blew up. Everyone's like, oh, this is great, this is awesome, this is perfect, this is wonderful. I'm like, really? It's red and blue. And a white eye. And that's it. So I kind of sat back and I thought, I'm like, all right, let me put up a couple more colored pictures. I kept doing that throughout probably 6-7 months. And then I started getting artists contacting me. And they're like, well, I want to start building up your portfolio. You have a really awesome potential. You can definitely do this for a living. Coloring is great. Do one thing at a time. And I'm like, well, I want to draw. I don't want to color. I'm like, how can you make a living coloring? In all honesty, really, how? And one of the artists was actually working at the time, I forget which book it was, but it was a horror comic book. And I'm like, all right, well, let me see kind of where this goes. Colored up his stuff, and then my MySpace really got big. And now I have companies contacting me. So I guess pretty much the moral of that story is that just if you guys have any kind of colorings, if you have any kind of artwork, and you have Facebook or Twitter or MySpace or Tumblr or whatever else is out there, put it up there. Just put it up there, get yourself out there, because you never know who the heck is watching your stuff. You know, there are times where I have like Peter Steigerwald, you know, comment every so often, oh, this looks great. Yeah, that's all he says. But it's like, that's Peter. I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. Like, you know, he doesn't know, but he trained me, he taught me how to color. Now, not physically like this, but I picked up my favorite books, my favorite comics, and I learned that way. And I'm like, oh, I can do this kind of stuff. Oh, it's so easy, it's so easy. Well, it's not as easy as it looks the first couple of years, because I didn't go to school for coloring whatsoever.
There's like no actual major for coloring. I mean, I took like color theory classes in college, but I mean, I didn't do that because I was setting out to be a colorist. My plan, I went to school to be an animator, so. So
it kind of somewhat goes hand in hand with coloring animation. You kind of have to know that, you know, that kind of stuff. But that's how I got started. And then from there, you know, I just kept on bugging Raven Gregory, who's a writer, and also one of the editors at Zenescope, who's also downstairs, right as you walk in. I contacted him for like 4 years. Every show that they were at, I went up to Raven and said, hey Raven, you know, I'm a colorist, do you have anything? And I'm really interested, I really want to work with you guys. He's like, no, not yet. One day, C2E2, when C2E2 in Chicago first happened, Jeff, I got something I think for you. Here's my card, give me a call. Let's find out what we can do. And I'm like, awesome. I was so stoked. Got the pages, colored them up, got hired. And I've been with them for the past 4 years, freelance. So I just finished, I have well over 110 books now, mainly because of Zenescope, but I do a lot of other books, like I said, with John Carpenter, Zombies vs. Cheerleaders, Foot Soldiers through Image, Hack Slash. You know, so I have a lot of different books that I've worked on, and it all started just because of MySpace, because I put up one picture that everybody seemed to like. You know, and I guess that's kind of like what I was saying before, kind of where this all goes, is put your stuff up there, just get yourself out there. Shameless promotion? No such thing, just do it. Wear a t-shirt that says, hey, I'm a colorist. Hey, I'm an artist. Who cares? You gotta promote yourself. If you don't do it, no one's gonna do it for you, especially colorists.
Yeah, it's like pretty much, I got started in like a similar way, like my work was all like, I mostly participated on DeviantArt. I was on a comic battling website called entervoid.com where you pretty much, you draw a comic and you battle another artist that also draws a comic and people vote on it. And pretty much throughout college I participated on that, and everyone was always like, stop focusing on coloring, you need to work on your lines. And I was like, I don't care, I like coloring. And I originally also wanted to just be like a penciler or something. It's like, who wants to be a colorist? And pretty much I just like kind of kept at it. Around when I graduated from college, I went to Columbus College of Design, like in Columbus, not too far from here. And from there, like I knew a buddy, and he was like, hey, this guy's like starting up a comics thing, do you want to participate in? And I was like, okay. So I did like a few like small things for them, and their little company like eventually fell apart. But through the website Entervoid, like I had become like friends with like Marley Zircone, James Stocco, also people like Kenneth Rockerford were like originally from that website. And since I had like, James was just about to start working on his own Godzilla book, and I was like, hey James, if you ever need like colors or anything, hey, you know, like hit me up. And he ended up needing someone to like do flats, and flats is like the worst job on the planet, but it's something, it gets you experience. So I did that. And
now, do you guys know what flats are, what flattening is or anything? For those of you who don't know, pretty much what it is that this person they're called a flattener, and they're kind of like our assistant. So they actually physically put in the colors to the panels or the covers to make it quick, to make our job a heck of a lot easier. So they're not putting in the shading, they're not putting in the highlights or any of the special effects. That's what we do. The flattener just really like, so the Spider-Man picture, they'll put the red and the blue and that's it. That's what they do. It is not a glorious job.
It's
like,
horrible.
At all. But
I hate doing
it helps
that.
us out a lot. You know, we can, like, it usually takes me like 3 to 4 pages I can get done in a day, if I was doing my own flattening, I could probably do up to 5, maybe 6, depending on the book, to get an entire 6 pages done in one day with a flattener. So it really, really, really helps. And also as a flattener, it also kind of helps you realize and understand a little bit more of like where the shading should go, where this should go, where that should go. So it actually does kind of like prep you to be a colorist as well. So, sorry, go.
No, it's okay. Like, yeah, it's like when I tell people, like, when I like told my mom, like, hey, I'm gonna work on a Godzilla book, I'm gonna be the flatterer. Even when like people come up to my table at cons, and it's like, they're like, oh, you colored Godzilla? And I was like, I did the flats. And it's always hard to describe exactly what flatting is. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I helped with colors. That's the easiest way to describe it. It's like I'm credited as color assist. So it's like, I mean, I always feel really bad, and I always have to correct people because they're like, wow, you did such a great job shading and getting the colors right on Godzilla. And I'm like, no, that was all James. I just did all the bitch work pretty much. And well, from there I met my editor, Bobby Curnow, for IDW, and he eventually, James's wife, Marley Zircone, got approached to do the April O'Neil micro for the Ninja Turtle series. So she was like, hey, Heather, you want to do colors? And I was like, yes. So I was like a diehard Ninja Turtle fan when I was a kid. And from there, eventually My Little Pony got announced, and I harassed Bobby. I was like, hey Bobby, like literally the day they announced that IDW was doing the My Little Pony comic, I was like, hey Bobby, can I do that? And he was like, well, Andy's probably gonna do his own colors. Andy's the artist on the My Little Pony comic. So I was like, okay, well, keep me in mind. And it turned out like Andy wasn't fast enough at coloring, so Bobby was like, hey, do a test page, and I did the test page, and I got the job. And from there, I essentially got my start because I got my work online. I made friends in the community. It's like comics are very closely, tightly knit. It's not a huge community, so don't be a dick online all the time.
Pretty much.
It's because you never know who's going to end up working for Marvel or DC or Image or IDW, and so yeah, I got my start pretty much through connections, and that's kind of how most art jobs are. It's like if you do animation, you do any sort of penciling, it's like if you want to be a pencil, you need connections. Because it's I don't think Image even looks at their submissions. It's the best way to get people to see your work is harass an editor or know someone. Because it's you need to hit editors at cons and stuff, because it's I think one person gets hired through submissions a year probably, because it's those people don't have time to look at this.
Well, I have one thing with the editor thing. With the editors, I'll tell you what, right now the editors are so bombarded with submissions at conventions, via email, regular mail. They are bombarded left and right. And I'll tell you what, I know where a lot of those submissions go. They go in a little filing cabinet that sits roughly about 2 feet high off the ground. A lot of them. Hate to say it like that, but in all honesty, I physically seen it with my eyes with a couple of the big companies. It hurts. It hurts when you physically see that. So what I do as a colorist, now this is another way how I got in, and really when you go to shows, you don't see a lot of colorists at conventions. Every so often you'll see a colorist maybe here and there. You might see Paul Mounts. Was colored for Marvel for, I think, 30 some years. You'll see Peter Steigerwald, who's downstairs actually at Aspen Comics, who also did a lot of Mike Turner covers and all the Mike Turner books. You'll see Nia Ruffino, who's also now illustrating her own work. You'll see bits and pieces here and there, but everybody pretty much downstairs is an artist. An illustrator. We're all artists, but you're gonna see the illustrators. What I do is I get to become friends with the artists. Because when you make friends with the artists, as a colorist, you're always gonna have work. Even if you're not working on the books, you can at least set up shop at a convention. You can start showing yourself off a little bit more, kind of, hey, I'm a colorist, this is what I do. This is just one other way to kind of get yourself out there. So it's not just going online, going to Facebook or Twitter or wherever and putting your stuff up there. That's awesome. That's what you definitely have to do. But go to a smaller convention or go to any kind of convention, set up shop. Or just go to a convention, say, hey, I'm a colorist, I love your artwork, buy a black and white print even, and just color it by hand. See kind of where that goes. Show the artist. Maybe that artist will say, hey, do you have anything else? Any other colors? Do you want to collaborate on stuff? Because you never know. Like what she said, you never know where that artist is going to lead. They can go to Marvel, they can go to DC, they can go to Dark Horse or wherever. And they may take you with because you do such an awesome job on their stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of another way.
On that note, the most important thing with being a colorist, you need a reputation of being a hard worker, being fast. I'm currently on about 4 ongoings, so usually for most of the comics I get a week. So I actually just wrapped up, I had to have 3 comics done in a week. There was 2 22-pagers and a 48-pager. So I was like, well, I'm probably not gonna sleep, but usually I actually finally, for the first time, actually had to employ a flatter. Usually I do my own flats because I'm greedy and want money. So because I'm like, if I get a flatter, I have to pay them. And well, the thing that's always depressing about flatters is like, they're like, my rate's like $5 a page. I'm like, no, don't do that to yourself. It's like, never sell yourself short. Like, even if you're like gonna be like a flatter, it's like, I found like a lot of people like doing like commissions through like Tumblr. They're like, hey, I'm doing $10 commissions. I'm like, no, unless you can bust that up in like 10 minutes, you're gonna be making less than minimum wage.
Right, right. You know, and with being a colorist, you have got a majorly, like she said, you have hard deadlines. The editors will always give the artist more time for the most part.
And the artist will always wait until the last minute.
And they do. The artists will wait till the last minute to get us anything. And then the letterer, I feel bad for them. You know, the guys who do little thought balloons, little words, you know, so you can actually read the book. Those guys, they pretty much have to get the book done in a day. A good letterer will definitely do that. They'll get it done, they can get 4 books done in a day. I know that one of the guys is Cincinnati, that's what he does.
That's crazy.
But there are times where, I mean, I have a week to get a 48-pager done, as she was saying. You know, she had a couple different books she was working on. It's rough, and it's a lot of detailed stuff. And because I don't work over inkers, which kind of stinks.
Oh God, why would you do that?
They don't have
hate
inkers.
working on
A lot of these companies, unless you work for Marvel or DC, they don't have inkers. They can't afford it. So you have to go strictly from pencils to colors. And with that, we have to clean up a lot of the panels on the inside because there's smudges from the wrist when they're trying to erase something. There's smudges and that and this. That by itself, probably an entire book will take you 1 or 2 days. So now you cut your week down to maybe 4 days to get a 48-page book done.
Well, that makes me thankful that IDW, like most artists just ink all their own stuff. So
Which is good.
So yeah, I'm just like, it's so much easier.
Oh yeah. So as of right now, are there any questions with anything that we've said so far? Don't all put your hands up. All good. It's cool. Let's see, what else?
We could talk about what we use. Like, I mean, I feel like,
Duh.
yeah.
I use crayons. All with Cinescope stuff. Have you seen the covers on
You
Cinescope?
really
It's
do
all
use
crayon.
crayons?
No, I don't.
I was gonna say, wow.
No, I don't. I use Photoshop. And as I was saying before, you know, I learned Photoshop probably about a year after I got onto MySpace, and I started really using it for pimping myself, you know, essentially. And I'm like, wow, I can actually use the computer. But I didn't have at the time a tablet, because like I said, I just figured out that you can use a computer to color. It's like, oh my God, this is so easy. I can get a book done in like a month. Yeah, better cut that down a lot. So then, I'm using a mouse, and that is not an easy task. Has anybody used a mouse? Has anyone tried coloring with a computer, first of all? Okay, the majority. So you want, have you used a mouse?
I have, it was terrible.
It was horrible.
That's how I learned.
Once you said? It's not an easy task at all. So now, I have, of course, I got the big, I'm gonna screw up the name, the Intuos 4 tablet. You know, I have it just sitting over here, and my hand's going like this, and I'm looking at the screen every so often. I kind of watch TV. Then I go right back. That makes it a heck of a lot easier, because you're physically, it's like you're drawing or coloring right on the paper. But doing it with a mouse, oh my God, I don't miss that at all. After one book me doing like that, never again will I do that.
Yeah, I pretty much use the same stuff. I use Photoshop CS3, and I'm thinking of doing CS6 now that Adobe has decided to be awesome and do the cloud service. So I'm like $20 a month. So I don't mind doing that, so I can finally join the millennium or whatever with my coloring software. I actually used 7 for years and years and years, and I only switched to CS3 because I couldn't get 7 to work on my new computer. So I was like, all right, whoops.
So those of you who do color on the computer, do you guys, how can I say this where I don't get like 10,000, well, 8 answers all at once. Are you guys using Photoshop? Pretty much? Using something different?
Yeah,
What do you use?
It's called the, I hate the word, but it's called the GIMP.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
Gip's an all right
I
program.
just use that because, I mean, really, I can't afford Photoshop right now. That's an investment that I really can't do.
That's the nice thing about the new cloud service is it's like you can either just get Photoshop for $20 a month, or you can get the entire suite for $50. So if you actually want to use Illustrator or After Effects or Flash or something, that's all just $50.
That's
So-
nice. Have you used Photoshop though?
Yeah, I've used it once before when I got started.
Okay.
On webcomic. It was just a lot. It's more about a time thing. I'm trying to get everything I need to do at once on there too. I was trying to learn, I'm like, I just don't have time yet. At that point, because there was just so many things to learn on there. I can do this. I can do this. And I was like, wait a minute, how did I just do this? But,
You know, you brought up something really good too there. A lot of people who want to become colorists, who actually really want to become a colorist, they want to do everything. I know you weren't going this direction, but I'm going to kind of take it in that direction right now. Learn one thing first and master it. If it's going to be coloring, master it to where you think that you are phenomenal. Because if you don't, if you start going and you want to do the artwork and the inking and the writing and the coloring, guess what? You're going to be done in about 6 months. Because you're taking on way too much stuff at one
Or
time.
if you're like the guy from Non-Player, he's like did this really detailed book for Image, and issue 1 came out about 4 years ago. I'm still waiting on issue 2.
And that's what you really don't want to do. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, or whatever, if you take a nap later on or something, and you wake up and you want to draw, then draw. Then that's what you're meant to do. Or write, or color, or ink, or whichever, edit. That's what you need to do. I got that advice because I said that I want to do the illustrations and the coloring with my own stuff. And I was told by 3 different artists who I met on MySpace many years ago, well, 7 years ago. They said, no, master that one thing. And you know what? That is so true. That is very true. Because then you're not bombarded with so much at one time. Because then you want to focus on your artwork. Well, guess what? Now your coloring is going to lapse, or vice versa.
You're never going to hit your deadlines because it's like you're not going to draw and color a book in a week. It's like, I mean, I guess if you're crazy or like if you don't mind it looking like crap, maybe. But it's like no editor is going to let you seriously do that.
No.
And on the note of like learning to do one thing, if you are interested in being a colorist, I highly recommend learning different styles because that's the easiest way to get any work. If you look at Peter Panzerfaust compared to My Little Pony, those are 2 books that I worked on, but they both look drastically different. You pretty much like give yourself way more job opportunities if you're more willing to learn how to do a style. Like a few times, like I think like starting out on Peter Panzerfaust, Tyler, he was like, hey, could you like kind of like do like a Dave Stewart kind of thing? I was like, yeah, because I was doing that style a lot of the time anyways. And then we go to like the next arc of the book and he starts like doing like watercolor toning and stuff. And he's like, hey, can you work with this and like, do something more painterly? So I was able to like, like shift gears. And it's like, when I'm working on multiple books at once, it's like, you have to make it to where you can easily shift between styles because you're gonna get way more employment opportunities if people can see, oh, you can do like Dave Stewart, you can do like, Tony Wash, he worked on the World of Warcraft comics. You can do like more cel-shaded, or like anime, more like what I'm doing on the My Little Pony comic. It's like, just keep your learn how to do different things, even if the best way is to look at another colorist and copy what they do. Because you will eventually learn how to do it yourself. It's like, when I was first starting out, I would steal palettes and be like, hey, this palette looks sweet, I'm gonna color something like this. I didn't do that for any of my professional work, but just stuff for shits and giggles pretty much.
Right.
And so it's look at other people, copy what they do in the beginning. You don't wanna do it on your actual professional work, because someone on the internet somewhere will figure it out.
Oh yeah, they do. And as soon as it hits the internet, it's wildfire. You cannot stop it, there's no way. phones, to computers, to laptops, to anything with an I in it, let me tell you, it just spreads like wildfire. And on the same note, I copied, Peter Steigerwald's type style because that's what I liked. Peter Steigerwald, then I got to get to know him kind of somewhat a little bit a few years ago, and then I started to get to know Nia Ruffino, who also works down with DC, and just a bunch of other companies. And phenomenal work, but they have more of a painted style. I have my own style. And I've been approached by companies who said, hey, color like Peter, color like Nia, color like this.
I hate when they do that.
And I said, no.
Why don't you hire that person?
Exactly. And these were big companies that I never thought I'd say no to. But I said, I'm not this person, I'm not that person. This is my style. You sought me out. You know what I got. Why should I color like them? Maybe you should get them. And of course, it got a little offended, a little upset with me. But you know what? That's an artist thing.
It's like, I mean, I can't think of any artist that gets hired because they can draw like someone else, unless you like specifically go for Marvel or DC and they want like a house style. It's like,
Right.
if you're going for like, like more like creator-owned, like Image and Dark Horse, they want you to do your own style. It's like even when, even on stuff like licensed work, I'm on Ninja Turtles, My Little Pony, Hasbro and Nickelodeon are like pretty much let us do like our own sort of style and stuff. I mean, of course there's guidelines and stuff, but they don't want us to copy the show. They don't want us to be other artists. So it's like learn to do your own thing and embrace it.
So doing different styles is always a good thing. We're downstairs, we're sitting right next to each other. So it actually works out really well. You can see definitely the two different styles of coloring. I wish I had something here that we can physically show you, but it's all downstairs. So I worked on a book called Dead Pooh. Yeah, not Deadpool, Dead Pooh. It's Winnie the Pooh and Deadpool mixed together into one character. It's fun as hell. It is awesome. I wish I had it here, but unfortunately I sold out of them. It's a really funny book. So then that's very cartoony. But then I work on stuff with John Carpenter. It has got to be detailed to no belief. It just has got to be really, really cool because it's going to be made into a movie, into 2 video games, into a big, thick book. It's got to be really detailed stuff. So I really got to make sure. So going back to the having different styles, absolutely. Just don't keep just one style because then you got your blinders on and you're only going to be focused on that one style, like horror.
Yeah,
I'm all over the scale.
And like, what if that style ever goes out? It's like, you don't see a lot of people like doing like cuts and gradients anymore. The big trend right now in comics is more like what people do on like Michael Turner stuff, like the more soft style. It's still gradients, but it's like more of the soft style. It's like, that's really big. That's been big for like the past like 5 years or so. And stuff that's more like Dave Stewart, since he colors like every book ever right now, since there's like 5 colorists like working in the industry. So it's mostly like more painterly stuff or more soft stuff's big. And it's like there's always gonna be trends in like any sort of comics. Like even if it's like pencilers, there's always gonna be trends in penciling, there's always gonna be trends in coloring. So it's like, it's good to like, keep evolving. So it's like you never know when things are gonna change. So you don't wanna be stuck doing like cuts and gradients all the time when no one else is doing it.
Exactly. Something else that I use, I don't use them in the books. I got hired to do a book all with marker. That hasn't been done for decades. And it was a 120-page graphic novel.
Oh.
Thankfully, it didn't happen. And I say thankfully because, you know what, guess what? If you screw up, that paper's got to get ripped up and the artist has to redraw it unless you make photocopies, which they didn't want to do. Because they thought it did something to the artist's
They had you
art.
working on the originals?
They had me working on the originals. Thankfully, like I said, thankfully it didn't happen. But I do a lot of marker stuff. So if you guys go downstairs and you see us, we're kind of like right in the center of the convention, right before you get to Artist Alley, both Heather and I. I have a portfolio that's all Prismacolor marker, my marker of choice, and all my digital stuff. Some of the books I've worked on, and the prints. You really can't miss it. I got a big banner that says Get Balked, and I got a big one, another one right next to that one. It's a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You really can't miss it. They're both 10 feet tall.
And I have a big bright pony.
Exactly. A big bright pony next to me. But definitely stop by when you go down there and check out. There's a lot of different ways that you can like I said, get into the industry, that you can get yourself known if you want to be a colorist. And there's not a lot of colorists, unfortunately, out there right now.
That's the nice thing though, because it is very easy to get into coloring because no one else wants to do it. Because it's like, there's not a lot of glory. We don't really get invited to a lot of cons. Like, when I was at BronyCon, I pretty much kind of had everything like confirmed, like how it would be. Like, everyone went to Katie and Andy, and I was like, hey guys, I work on the comic too. It's like, I actually worked on like more issues than the main writer and artist, and I'm like, hey, I'm here too. So it's like, it's like there's not a lot of glory. It's not that exciting, but it's like, I mean, I'm a really like laid back kind of person. I'm pretty much an introvert. I kind of don't want the fame and the glory, and it's like, the nice thing about being a colorist is no one really cares if you mess up. It's like, if someone messes up on My Little Pony, like Katie Cook gets death threats and stuff. So it's like, people on the internet are more likely to hate you if you're the penciler or you're the writer, because there's more things they can pick apart. When it comes to coloring, people don't really look at it with like an analytical eye very much. It's like, like other colorists, like all 5 of us might look at it, but there's like a few books out. Whenever I like sometimes won't buy a book because I'm like, that coloring's terrible. I don't care if the story's good.
Yep.
Like, that's why I read a lot of manga, since it's in black and white. I'm like, I don't have to care what this really looks like.
On the flip side of that, when you do get noticed, let me tell you, it's an awesome feeling. I've been nominated for 2 Eagle Awards, which is really cool, which Mr. Stewart beat me out of those.
It's so hard to win awards because he gets nominated for them.
But I did get an award actually in 2011 for favorite colorist for Sheldorf. And Sheldorf is the guy who actually created San Diego Comic-Con. Well, he's one of the guys who created San Diego Comic-Con. So his family did like this really cool thing, this award for him in his honor. So let me tell you, that is one hell of an honor. The guy who started San Diego, I'm getting an award, from his family. Like, that's pretty cool. So you can go really far actually with the coloring aspect of things. It's just really kind of getting your style down, figuring out how you want to get in. You could talk to so many different people out there, like how they get in. We could sit up here and talk blue in the face until I shouldn't tell you how we got in, but it's all about you. It's all how you really want to get in.
There's definitely no set way on how to get in. It's like, some people like do get in through editors. Some people, it's like, I think there was like an artist that got like picked up through Marvel like a few years ago. They got picked up because someone, like an editor had been watching her on DeviantArt or something. And it's like, it's like no person gets into the industry like the same way.
Someone got picked up at a bank. He was drawing right outside the bank and some editor walked down by and says, I like you. Here's my card. You're gonna be hired. You're hired. Like at a bank.
So hang out
Really?
at banks
Hang
and
out at
draw
banks.
all day, and you will get into the industry.
Don't wear masks. They won't like
Or
that too much.
sunglasses or hats, according to the little sign outside my bank.
Okay, we're still good. Any questions on anything?
Just one real quick, you use Photoshop quite a bit. You guys use Illustrator.
Not for coloring.
It's all
Illustrator
vector.
Illustrator is, in my eyes, it's the demon child when it comes to coloring.
Oh, that and Painter.
Big
Screw
time.
Painter. I hate Painter so much. I had to use it in college, and I was like, this is like Maya. This is the most unuser-friendly thing ever made. It's like, I don't recommend Maya for anything. Stay away. It's a 3D program. It's like, it's like one of the most complicated 3D programs ever. They use it for South Park. It's like, I'm like, really, you guys can't use 3D Studio Max. But yeah, that's kind of a tangent. It's like, Photoshop's probably the most user-friendly. It's like, I mean, you try other programs. It's like, Manga Studios starting to get bigger in coloring. They just revamped their coloring system. It's like, I've heard a lot of colorists are like, starting to switch over, but I'm still kind of diehard Photoshop just because that's where all my brushes are. It's like, that's what my setup and my shortcuts and stuff, it's like, so, I mean, there's no set way, but it's like, I don't recommend Illustrator just because it's specifically for graphic design mostly. I mean, you probably could use it for coloring. I haven't really tried. It's like, I mean, it has a lot of the same tools as Photoshop, so it's possible. I mean, it is like for pretty much for print program. So, I mean, it could be cool. I don't know how easy it would be, but.
What I usually suggest, for people who You know, because Photoshop is extremely expensive, especially if you get the whole suite. You're talking $1,500, $1,600, $1,700. You're talking a lot of money. And Photoshop by itself, if you get the newest, is anywhere from like $750 to $900, which I think is like CS6, which I think is the newest version that's out. I tell people all the time, get Photoshop 7. That is a great starting point, and it's actually a lot cheaper if you can find it. It's actually a lot cheaper to get now. It's still a couple $100, but they have so many different versions out. You know, they're more worried about those versions versus like the older versions. Photoshop 7, the reason why I say that is because it's all the buttons are still there. All the buttons that they have now are still there. There's just extras, a little more bells and whistles.
Yeah,
But it's a great starting point.
I think like the only thing that was really different between like CS and like 7 was like, I feel like the layout changed. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's like, I for the longest time I used a CRT monitor. I didn't get and I believe I use an LCD now. Like I didn't switch to like a 22-inch like LCD until like the past year or two. I was still using a CRT. I think it was like a 17-inch. And when I switched to CS, it's like it wants to like have everything cram over to one side of the screen, and that was really annoying. But I mean, you know, like you said, like 7 was what I mostly worked in until I couldn't get it to work anymore for some reason.
PC or Mac?
PC.
Who else here uses PC?
'Cause I used 7 64-bits, so that was the problem. It's like, it was really finicky going to a 64-bit system. It's like, most programs work on Windows 7 64-bit. I would not touch 8 right now because I'm still afraid of like compatibility problems.
Yeah.
And, God, what's it called? Metro. Screw Metro.
Well, the reason why I asked, because everybody keeps asking me, how come I have not switched over to a Mac yet? I said, because I don't have to. You don't have to. It's great, it's fantastic. Your computer may not crash as much, but you gotta buy all the programs all over again. I've got all the programs that are already set on my PC. I updated, I put all the new bells and whistles. I got a jet engine on the back of mine. I got all my cool stuff on mine. You know, I don't want to change mine up. And I'm always asked, do you use Mac for your laptop when you color? No, I don't color on my laptop. My laptop won't hold it at all. My laptop can barely hold a document. So I'm definitely not going to put Photoshop on this thing. But I do get asked that all the time, you know, PC versus Mac, and that's why I had to ask, you know, who uses a PC? You don't have to get a Mac. Regardless of what everyone else will say, Laura Martin might actually kick me in the face for saying that. She's one of the colorists for Marvel. She may kick me in the face. I think she uses a Mac, and she lives and dies by it, but you don't need it.
Yeah, definitely.
Just saying.
It's like, I mean, outside of professional stuff, I'm a PC gamer. So I'm like, you know, I want to be able to do my own stuff. I love upgrading my computer. How am I going to do that on a Mac? It's like I can just dump some RAM into my PC. I don't have to pay someone to do it. And it's like I've always used a PC. I've used Macs in college, and I mean, they're nice. I mean, I don't like that their monitors are like super, super shiny, so there's a lot of glare. The only thing that I felt Macs were ever good for that you really kind of sort of needed one was like, if you're doing like a lot of like film rendering or something, that's the only thing that, it's like at CCAD, the film department was the only department with Macs. The department where people were doing like Illustrator and stuff, that was all PC, game design, that was all PC. So it's like, you don't need a Mac. It's like, I mean, I don't hate them. I mean, they're good systems. I mean, I was just looking at, when I got a PC built this year, and when I looked, my Starbucks that I worked at was across from an Apple store, and I was like, okay, I need to see how much the equivalent of my new PC would have cost me if I got a Mac, so I can yell at them if they try to get mad at me for getting a Mac, well, a PC. And my PC would have been about $5,000 if I got a Mac, and it was a little under $2,000 for a PC. So I was like, why would you spend all that money? It's like, especially like for comics and stuff, it's like, there's nothing that a Mac does that a PC can't already do. And it's like, there's a lot of like cool drawing programs and stuff that might not work on Macs.
Yep.
So,
And Starbucks becomes your friend.
yeah.
Just saying.
That's part of what kept me there for so long.
So, what else? Do you have anything else? Do you guys have anything? I mean, we got a couple questions. Oh, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, usually on my webcomic, like what I try to do, I'm working on now in coloring, is working on the tone of like, if it's a scene that I'm trying to get right. One thing, that's the thing that bothers me, is like when I do it, like I get a scene color like in flats, and then I gotta figure out where the light's coming from in the scene.
Yeah.
I mean, that drives me nuts, but I know I have to do it. But in the background is the part that I'm still having an issue with. Like, 'cause I want, like, if it's a dark scene, like I have one I'm working on now, I'm trying to get the background dark, I guess, like a mood scene, that's the thing.
Like a night scene kind of a thing.
Right. So, like, how do you, like, work with that, like, getting the scene like you want it to look, really?
Just after, I mean, for us, it's kind of like second nature, but what I use, first of all, when I do my coloring now, I don't use black, and I barely use grays.
Okay.
This is where a lot of color theory comes into play. And being a colorist, you really gotta kind of know at least the basic color theory.
Yeah, black, gray, and white technically don't exist in reality.
Exactly. So what I do in that case is that I'll just take like two darker colors and kind of play with them. Like I'll take like a darker blue and like some kind of purple, and I'll just kind of fade them to where it kind of looks like a realistic type of night sky.
Okay.
Maybe put stars in there, put some clouds. There's a cool cloud brush that I absolutely love. I don't know if you saw that, but I love the cloud brush.
Oh, I have one like
It's a lot
that
of
too.
my books.
It's like there was like someone that like put like the ultimate cloud tutorial on Tumblr, and I was like, it had the most amazing cloud brush because it kind of made them for you. So it's like you just kind of need to go in a circle when you gradually make it lighter. And I'm like, this takes no effort. This is awesome. But look at photos sometimes. It's like a lot of my skies, like I like pulled up like photo references from Google. It's like there is no two sunsets that look alike. There's no two like night skies that look alike. Don't be afraid to use photo reference. One thing that I feel like is important, think about the palette you want to use. Do I want this to be a lot of cools? Do I want this to be a lot of warms? One thing that's really cool is to add like little color accents. Like I just saw someone, there's like this fan-made project called Akira on Tumblr where they are redoing the manga Akira but with Simpsons characters. And there was this really amazing page I just saw where it was like a nice scene. It's like Bart's like, he was Tetsuo, he was riding on a motorcycle and it was a nice scene and he used mostly greens. And it was like, it was all cool colors, but like the bike was like bright red. So it was like this, it's really cool to have like just one like really vibrant color sometimes. So it's like, I like to do that with like neon lights and stuff. It's like, have like a bunch of reds or a bunch of pinks. It's like something to make like stuff stand out because you don't want to have like a monochromatic palette, which is where you pretty much just use one color, because that gets really boring. Like, don't be afraid to use like accents and stuff to like spice things up a little.
So I don't know if you know the artist Tommy Castillo, but he's worked on Batman. Many years ago he worked on Batman, but he's worked on a lot of different things, and he's actually taken me through the process of how he does his coloring. He's an artist, but he also does his own coloring as well too. And he is definitely telling me, going back to what you were saying, he had me do a Batman piece, which I do have downstairs. I color up this Batman, dark, the background, red. That is probably one of my #1 pieces, and it's that simple. You just put something dark in the front, make a bright background, and boom, let me tell you, it really attracts the eye. And that again goes back to color theory. It's like, what looks good with what? Why do you think Spider-Man is always so popular? Red and blue. You just separate the red and blue on one page, put red on this side, blue on this side, guess what? People are gonna love it. And that's why the cops always have red and blue. Not that I know that, I never see those lights following me anytime, but that's why they always have it, because you always see it. It's always gonna attract your eye.
Have you taken a look at the new Hawkeye book?
Nope.
Well, if you get the second trade, which just came out, at the very back of the book, the colors laid out, he like showed like a thumbnail for each and every page, like the flats for each page.
Oh, that's nice.
And if you look at it, he mostly uses just like 3 different colors throughout the entire book. And it's like, he said that when he works on the book, he lays out all the colors and palettes that he wants to do at first. So it's like he does like a rough thumbnail of how he wants the entire book to look. And it's like, I thought that was cool. I wouldn't work that way because I don't have time for that. that.
Right.
But I thought it was really cool that he mostly just used 3 colors, but it's like, he used like various shades of red or stuff. And it's
Yeah,
like,
that's awesome.
it works really well, and it's like, that's probably one of my favorite books to look at right now, like from like a color perspective, because it's like, everything like comes together really well.
Cool. And then what do you have coming up that you, because I know we got to start wrapping up in a couple of minutes, but what do you have coming up that they could wait for and check out in the future
Oh, well, I mean,
or working on now?
I'm still working on the same stuff. I just wrapped up the colors on the Equestria Girls 48-page annual, which is a My Little Pony book. I'm still on My Little Pony, Ninja Turtles, the animated based on the Nick show. Peter Pan's Faust is on break for a few months, but that'll be back with a new arc. And there's also a new series called Never Ending from Dark Horse, which is going to be coming out soon. So that's most of what I have.
Awesome. Well, me, I'm still doing stuff with John Carpenter. We have a book coming out hopefully by the end of the year, if not by probably January. So I have that book I'm working on with him. I'm, as I said a little bit earlier, I'm actually starting my own books, and we're going to start doing our own publishing and everything too. So I'm going from a colorist to an editor like that, which never happens. Scary, don't recommend it. So we're looking for artists, hint, and colorists, hint. But I've got that coming out, and then plus I'm still doing some stuff with Zenescope every so often too. So I'll be busy for the next few years, definitely for the next few months. And yeah, and like I said, definitely Heather and I are sitting next to each other downstairs, booth 426 and 428.
24.
And 424. So definitely check out our stuff. We can go in more details with you guys if you wanted to. We didn't have like the Photoshop stuff here to really kind of show you, but we can I can show you like my marker stuff. She can show you what she does when she draws and does the markers. So yeah. If you guys have any other questions before we let everybody go? Yeah, that's what I thought. We're all still waiting on.
Yeah.
I know, trust me. I had my coffee before I got in here, and I'm like, damn, I need another one. Put an IV right here, I'd be set to go. But yeah, I think we did pretty good.
Yeah. Somehow filled up that time.
We did, and we actually went 3 minutes over.
Wow, cool.
Woohoo! All right, well, thank you very much, guys, for coming up here. Hopefully we didn't bore the hell out of you that much. But yeah.